All right, so I did have a great presentation in my previous class about the Springs Resort in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. They are probably looking for one, if not two, maybe culinary positions for this summertime. Pagosa Springs, I think, have I talked about it in this class? I don't remember which class I've talked about it in. Um, Springs Resort is a resort that we work with, we partner with um, for students to do their summer internships. Obviously, it's not going to look like that because it's in the um, but it is a hot springs resort, so they have 50 different hot springs pools. But they also have culinary, so food and beverage outlets, and then they also have hospitality. So the focus is primarily on the hotel side of the internship. This would be the first time that they would accept culinary internships for the summer. But it basically is in Pagosa Springs. Um, which is right in this small little town in southern Colorado. So it's a very small mountain town. If you look basically where we are, San Antonio to Colorado. Um, they do have housing that they provide at a discounted rate to anyone who is working there as an intern. And so, yeah, I will post an announcement. It'll have the recorded YouTube video of the session so you can get more information. And then also, I will also have the link if you are interested in applying. There'll be a link there for you to fill out an application. They typically do the interviews around April because right now they're really busy with spring break. Um, but then in April, they'll do the interviews. And then it usually is like the end of May, first part of June when the internship starts. And it goes for 12 weeks throughout the summer. So yeah, pretty cool opportunity. All right. So let's talk chapter 6. All right. So last week when we met, we talked about main topic that we're talking about between chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8. What was that main topic? Well, we talked about inventory, but what was the main overall process that we were talking about? Purchasing cycle. Purchasing cycle, yes. So we talked about the purchasing cycle. And now, last week we talked about purchasing. This week we're talking primarily about the receiving and potentially some of the storing, but mostly the receiving. Okay. And what we need in order to control our costs in the receiving process. So I want you to think about it for a moment. Think about your order is being delivered. You've placed your order, you call or you make your order online. Okay. And then when the truck is backing up to your back door or your loading dock, okay, think about some of the tools or some of the things some of the items that you might need in order to check that product in successfully. Okay. So I want you to write maybe two or three things on a list of required tools or required items that you might need to check in those items successfully. Those of you who are online, you can write your answers in the chat. Those of you who are here in person, once you get your list, compare it with your neighbor, see if there's any similarities, any differences, and chat about those differences or similarities. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. All right, go. All right, who can give me one item off of their list? Go ahead.
Scale.
Okay, good. Why do we need a scale?
Because if you like order like 20 pounds of something like oranges, you have to scale it if it is 20 pounds.
Absolutely. If we order something by the weight, we want to verify, right? Because if we're purchasing it by the weight and our invoice says that's how much they sent us, we want to make sure we actually got that amount. If we didn't, then there's going to be a discrepancy. Okay, good. What else?
Like a purchase order.
Okay, good. So we have our purchase order. And then we also have our invoice. So the purchase order is what was actually purchased. The invoice is what the driver typically is going to give you to check things off of your list. Okay. We want to compare those items to make sure that everything that we did order actually is on the invoice and it's correct. If on my purchase order it said that the beef was $5.50 per pound, then I want to look at my invoice and make sure my invoice also says $5.50 per pound. Because if the invoice has a different dollar amount, I'm going to have some issues. Okay. So Samantha, we don't quite need the recipe because we've already used the recipe to order everything. So hopefully we'll already have the correct ingredients. But yes, we need to check our list. We might want what else? Some other items besides thermometer and scale.
Maybe a dating gun.
Okay, some way to date our items, whether that's maybe a marker or maybe we have an actual like thing that will scan and put dates on there, like a sticker maker or something like that. I'm gonna put date maker. It's a very technical term. Okay, why do we want to put the dates on our items when they're received?
So that you know when you got them and whenever you need to throw them out if they're gone, if they spoil.
Okay, good. We can double check them against when we receive them and maybe potentially when their expiration date is. And so we can practice FIFO. That's a good thing. So that way we can very clearly see when we got something in FIFO. Good. What else? This is all we need.
Storage room
Hey, what about our storage room?
to see how much we actually have.
Okay. So we want to maybe before the order even comes in, maybe we want to clean up our storage room. Maybe it's organized where we already have pulled the old stuff forward so we can just put the new stuff behind it for you so we can make sure FIFO. Okay. So does the receiving process just happen when the delivery truck drives up? No, even beforehand, we're preparing for that area. Okay, what else? Okay, good, Jordan. We might go through as we're cleaning up that storage room. Maybe we're going and pulling out all that expired stuff. If as we're pulling things forward to make sure that the stock rotation is correct, we might notice that things are out of date. We can pull them at that time and clean it. Good. What else? That's all we need.
Employees to carry this happen.
Absolutely. Good. I'm gonna change, I'm gonna say yes, employees are good, but I'm actually gonna add one word to that. Trained employees. How many of you, by a show of hands? I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, our truck is delivering right now. How many of you would feel comfortable going and receiving that order? I can say, hey, I gotta teach this class. Can you go receive that order for me? And you know that it'll be done perfectly. Right? So if we haven't trained people, what are some issues about having someone who's not trained going and receiving that product?
Skip a few steps.
What do you mean by that might skip a few steps?
I won't check, like, they maybe not weigh the items.
Okay, maybe they don't know they need to weigh the items.
They might know if like the produce is bad or not.
They maybe don't know what produce is bad or not. Okay, I'll give you an example. When I was up in Maine one summer, I had romaine lettuce all summer long. I got lettuce fresh from the farm. And then one week, the farmer had red leaf lettuce. Okay. And so I went and picked up 12 heads of brand new lettuce. And my assistant cook that night was setting up the salad bar. And she said, "Hey, David, do we have any more lettuce? We're out of lettuce." And I was like, "What are you talking about? We're out of lettuce. I just got 12 new heads of lettuce today." And she said, "Yeah, but they were mostly bad." Because she didn't know what red leaf lettuce was. So she threw away everything that wasn't green. Who does not know what red leaf lettuce is? Anybody not know? Okay, cool. I see a couple hands. Let's do a quick demo because this is important. How many of you are like, "Oh my gosh, there's red leaf lettuce? What is that?" So red leaf lettuce looks like this. And she kept only the green part because she thought the red part was bad. And I was like, "You threw away like over half of my lettuce."
Does it
That
look
was
more brown? Like
It is a little bit browner, yeah. Kind of like a dark purple color. But this is what red leaf lettuce looks like. So she basically took off all the brown stuff and kept only the green stuff. Was I upset? A little bit, right? Could I blame myself? She didn't know what red leaf lettuce was. I just assumed everybody knows what red leaf lettuce is. Okay, so sometimes we can't really be upset about anybody but ourselves if we haven't gone through that process. So that's kind of a long story, long about way of saying we have to have trained staff because otherwise they may even put something that should be in their freezer, they should put it in the refrigerator maybe. And then if it defrosts and we can't use it, that's product that's wasted, right? So they don't know where to store all that stuff. So we need to have trained staff. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say they could also possibly like put like meats near vegetables and stuff.
Very good point. They may put it in the right refrigeration, but maybe they store the meat above the vegetables, right? And that's not good because then there could be that cross contamination. So lots of different things. Jordan says there's heavy boxes. Yes. So if you might need like a pallet jack or maybe some kind of a cart or a dolly of some sort to pull those wheels, to pull all that stuff into the storage room, absolutely. Okay. So we need to think about the tools that are required. We also want to think about when that order is coming in. And if it's coming in during a busy time, maybe like a lunch rush, we want to make sure that we have somebody designated to go and receive that order. Because otherwise, if it just sits there, then it could also go bad. Oops, I have to erase these manually. All right. Talked about employee training already. We also want to think about the delivery schedules. So I'll give you an example. One summer, I had a delivery driver. He was brand new. Okay. I served breakfast from 8 to 9 o'clock. And so from 8 to 9 o'clock, I have about 50 to 60 people in my kitchen eating breakfast. They're making their sandwiches for lunch. So there's a lot of people moving around. I don't really have the space or the ability to focus on receiving an order. And so one day I heard the truck line backing up. And so I went and looked. It was about 7:45. And I told him, I said, "Look, I can't receive the order right now because I'm getting ready to serve breakfast at 8. Can you come back after 9 o'clock?" Okay. So he did. He went to his next stop and then came back. And then the next week, guess what? It's 8:15. I hear the truck backing up. And so I go out there and have a little bit more of a stern conversation, right? Because I'm just like, "Hey, this happened last week. Don't forget, I need you to come back after 9 o'clock." And so I explained to him again, I've got 60 people in my kitchen. I don't have space to receive the product. So in the future, if you get to mine before 8 o'clock, if you don't mind just automatically going to your next stop and then come back after 9 o'clock, right? And so the third week, he came back after 9 o'clock. Okay. And so what did I do? I made him a sandwich. And I wrote a little note on the sandwich, thanks for coming by after 9 o'clock, right? And I wrapped up some Rice Krispie treats that I had left over from dinner the night before. So sometimes our delivery drivers, we want to get in good with those delivery drivers because not only that, but he would take all of my produce and all my heavy stuff like the cans and the flour and all that stuff, and he would take it directly into my storage room. Right? Some people they'll just drop it in your loading dock and then you have to go and sort it. And so by having those relationships with those delivery drivers, we want to make sure that not all of our product is coming at once. In Maine, I was fortunate. I had one delivery person. But in a restaurant, you might have a dairy delivery, you might have a meat delivery, a produce delivery. So you want to try to manage those the best you can to make sure that you have someone available for that. And then the discrepancies or the differences, we want to manage those with a credit memo. Okay. Credit memo just basically says this is what I should have had, this is what they brought me, and I rejected it. Why might you reject something?
Gone bad.
It's gone bad. Okay. Yeah. What else?
Could be damaged.
It could be damaged. If I open up a box that has 10 cans of, let's say, black beans, or 6 cans of black beans, I open up that box and one of the cans is a massive dent in it. Do I take that?
No.
No, I send it back. Okay. Yeah. So we want to make sure that this credit memo will basically tell the person who pays our bills, hey, when this invoice comes in, when this adjusted invoice comes in, I need you to make sure that these black beans that were taken off in order for us to pay the right amount. Okay. So that's what that credit memo is. Two different types of inventory, physical inventory versus perpetual inventory. Okay. So what is physical inventory?
What you have on you.
Okay, what we have. So what we can see, oops, our physical inventory is what we can see. That did not work. Here we go. Pen. Here we go. What we can see, what we can touch. This is what we physically have on hand. Perpetual. What does that word perpetual mean?
Constant.
Constant, right? So perpetual means it's constantly updating. Constantly updating. So if Daniel is a server in a restaurant, every time he puts in a New York strip, it takes a New York strip out of our inventory. Okay. And every time Jan orders an appetizer, it takes that appetizer out of our inventory. Okay. It's a perpetual thing. It's always happening. One of the things that we have as far as managing our inventory in storage is a requisition form. What is the root word of requisition? Request. Kind of weird, but it's request. Okay, we're making a request. We're requesting the type of ingredients that we need in order to be functioning for that day. So if we were to go downstairs right now on the first floor in the back hallway, okay? And if you want to go explore later on, go for it. I just tell them you heard about this in Mr. Uminski's class. But basically, on the first floor in the back hallway, there's clipboards that are along the wall. Okay, those are requisition forms for every lab. So that way, the work studies or our lab techs, they can take that list, they can go through the dry storage, they can go through the cold storage, they can put things onto a cart, onto a rack, and then when it comes time, they can pull that stuff up to the lab so you can have your class. Okay, that's how that requisition works. Okay, think about also too, like maybe HEB personal shoppers, right? When you do the online shopping, they get a list, that's your requisition form. They go and fill that, and then you come and pick that up. Okay, so this requisition form is really important to track where our inventory is going. Okay, so one example of when I had to fill out a requisition form. One time I was working at the Sheraton Gunther Hotel downtown as a server, and I needed 2 bottles of A1 sauce. Okay. My guests, there were none like in the computer station area, the server side work area. There was no A1 sauce. My guests were having steak. So I had to go and get a requisition form from my boss. He filled it out for 2 A1 bottles. And then he called security, the loss prevention at the hotel, and let them know, hey, David's going to get this. Can you meet him at the cage? The cage is what we called the dry storage area. Okay. So he shows up. I give him the form. I stand outside. He goes inside the cage, goes to get 2 bottles of A1 sauce, gives them to me. And then he keeps one page for his records. And I take the other page back to my boss to say, yep, he gave me 2 bottles of A1 sauce. Seems like a long process to get 2 bottles of A1 sauce, right? But if they're taking that amount of detail to know where every bottle of A1 sauce is, how much detail are they focusing on their prime rib, on their fish, on their steaks? Okay. So it's really important that as we're going through these requisition forms, it helps us track to see when those products are being used and when they're taken out of storage. Okay. So a little formula here for us. We want to figure out the variance or the difference between our physical and perpetual. Okay. Remember, physical is what we can see physically. We can touch it, we can count it. Okay. Perpetual is what we're saying it should be in our inventory. Based on our computer system, based on our sales, this is what we should have in inventory. Physical says this is what we do have in inventory. And ideally, those numbers should match. Okay. So the way we do this, we have our opening inventory. So that's items that we already have on hand. We're going to add our purchases. Okay. And then we're going to subtract how many we have issued. Issued means that we've sold it. It's gone out of our kitchen. Okay. So if I add 35 and 10, what do I get? 45. And then I subtract 37. And what do I get?
So you're missing
Oh.
47.
Just kidding. I was like, that does not look right. Okay, so 45 minus 37 is 8. That's my perpetual, right? Because issued, that's basically, I look at my checks, that's how many was issued. Now, physical is my actual. I subtract 8 minus 8. What do I get?
0.
0. I'm not missing anything because my numbers match. I have 8 physical, and my perpetual says I should have 8. Those two inventories match. It's a good thing. All right. How about this one? We start with nothing. We purchase 55. So what is 0 plus 55?
55.
55. We subtract that 47. And we get 8. Now, physically, I go and count and I have 5 items. Okay, so what is 5 minus 8?
-3.
-3. That means I'm missing 3 items, right? My perpetual inventory says I should have 8 on hand because I purchased 55 and I only sold 47. So I should have 8 on hand. But my physical inventory says I only have 5. So now as a manager, I have to put my detective hat on and figure out why am I missing 3? Let's pretend these are steaks. Okay. Why would I be missing 3 steaks?
You could have weighed the wrong amount.
Okay, so maybe I had like a primal cut, right? Like I mean like I'm supposed to get 55 servings, but I actually only got 50. I didn't get all 55 servings because I cut the steaks wrong. That could be a reason. Good. What else? Theft. Absolutely. Right? What if that line cook just got really hungry and that steak just looked really good? So I'm just going to make myself a steak. Okay. Samantha, it was sent back. Absolutely. Right? So let's say I make a mistake. Okay. So I sent a steak out. It was wrong. We have to remake that steak. If I don't put that extra one in the computer system, right, then this isn't going to update to issue 48 instead of 47. So every time, even though I made a mistake, I still have to put that onto the check that I have to remake it. Okay. We have a saying in the kitchen oftentimes, no ticket, no taco. Meaning you don't have a ticket for it, I'm not going to give you food. So I, as a server, can't walk up to Eusebio and be like, hey, Eusebio, I forgot to put on a steak. Can you put a steak on? Medium rare. I'll go run it in. I'll go put it in the check. I'm going to put it in the computer right now. I'm really busy, right? Until that ticket comes through, we're not putting anything on the grill because with no ticket, you're not going to get anything in return. That's how things get stolen. That's how things walk out the door. Okay. It happens. I'll tell you, one of my trainers, when I worked at TGI Fridays, one of my trainers actually told me when my friends come in to visit, I can give them soup, I can give them salads, because I make those things myself as a server, right? We call it the hookup. I can hook up my friends. Well, now I realize that's stealing because they're not paying for that product, right? And so it's important that as managers, we're paying attention to all of those things. If we come up with -3 of an item, we got to figure out why we have -3 of an item. And then we go back and we're like, oh yeah, I remember now. David made a mistake. And so I can go follow up with David. Hey, did you ring up that extra steak? No, you didn't? Okay, great. That's one. I got to find two more. Okay. We're going to talk, I believe it's in chapter 8. We're going to talk 7 or 8. We'll talk about different reports that we have that managers can use to go and check the reports so that they can determine, right? What if, Cherokee, I'm just picking, sorry, I'm not picking on you because this is just because you're in my line of sight. What if Cherokee's on the grill and she accidentally drops a steak on the ground? Right? And then she just throws it in the trash. Hopefully you don't put it back up on the grill. Throw it in the trash and we don't write it down. Well, then, okay, I don't know where that extra steak went. Okay. So we want to make sure that we don't have that problem. All right, let's do this one. Do it on your own. Compare your answers to your neighbor. Those of you online, you can type your answer into the chat. About 30 more seconds. All right, so what do we have?
Negative.
The -1. That negative is important. So 25 plus 15 is 40 minus our 38 is 2. So 1 minus 2 is a -1. That means we're missing one, right? If we had a positive number, that means we have an extra one, which would seem kind of weird, right? Why do we have an extra one when it says we should have this amount? Okay. It happens though. It can happen, but we want to make sure we have a variance of -1 to make sure that we know that it means we're missing something. Okay. Any questions about variance and trying to figure it? This will come back in a later chapter, chapter 7 or 8. I don't remember exactly which one. This will come back in a later chapter. We'll talk about this. Okay. So for our perpetual inventory, again, this is something that in our system might potentially, not might potentially, but well, is going to, as we issue things, it's constantly being updated. So if you look, we start with 8. We didn't receive any, but we issued one. So we subtract that and we have 7. That becomes our new beginning. We didn't receive or issue any, so we're still at 7. The next day, we had 6 come in, right? So that's 13, but we issued 2, so we actually have 11. So this our perpetual inventory is constantly being updated, right? So if we have a scanning or whatever, we're scanning those codes, maybe it's going to automatically update in our computer system. The cool thing is you can put the unit price. So sometimes meat might change pricing based on the market, especially seafood. You can put whatever amount that it's charged at, and then you can figure out what your total in inventory is. Then we want to extend what we call extending and totaling. Okay. So extending, oops, I wanted that to be a highlighter. Extending is where we take the count, we multiply it by the price, and we get the total amount for that item. That's extending, right? So we're extending across. And then totaling is where we add everything together to get our total. So this is our dairy products. You'll see right here. How our dairy comes down here. So that we can see all of our different categories and determine what is the value of our inventory that we have on hand. So we can extend and total each one of our categories. Why do you think it's important to know how much product we have in inventory?
Because you get how many food serve.
It's the money that we spend, right? And then we can see how much maybe we have more on hand in order to serve, but how many guests we have to serve based on reservations we have coming up, all those things, right? This portion hopefully looks familiar to you. We have done this briefly. Okay. If it doesn't, that's okay. We're going to review it. So we take our beginning inventory, we add all of our purchases, and that gives us our total available inventory. So we start with 1,500, we add 2,500. What is our total available inventory?
4,000.
$4,000. But remember, if it's in inventory, If it's in inventory, we haven't used it yet, which means it's not part of our food costs. We haven't sold that product yet. So we have to subtract it. So $3,500 is my costs of goods sold, COGS. Cost of goods sold, COGS. How do we find the average of any group of numbers?
Add them up together and then divide by how many.
Good. So we add them all up and then divide by the number of items, right? So in this case, we have 1,500. Let me write it over here. It's our beginning inventory plus our ending inventory divided by 2, because we have two numbers. So in this case, it's 1,500. That's our beginning inventory. Our ending inventory is 500. And we divide that by 2. So what is 1,500 divided by, or what's 15 plus 500?
2,000.
$2,000. We divide that by 2, and my average inventory is $1,000. That means on average, based on my beginning and ending inventories, on average, I have about $1,000 in my storage. Okay. The next piece of the puzzle is our inventory turnover. We take our cost of goods sold and we divide by our average inventory. I'm trying to color code it so that way you can remember where those numbers come from. So our cost of goods sold was $3,500. Our average inventory is $1,000. We divide those two numbers and what do we get? You can use a calculator if you need to. 3.5. That means my inventory turnover is 3.5 times. Okay. What does that mean, turnover?
What you have left from the start.
Not so much what we have left from service. How many of you have heard of the term turnover? Have you heard that word used before? Turnover? What ways have you heard it used?
When something changes.
When something changes. Good. So employee turnover. What does that mean, employee turnover? Somebody quits and I have to hire somebody new, right? In servers, we have table turnover, we have guest turnover. Because the more times I can get people in my seat, the more times I can turn my tables, what does that mean for me as a server?
More tips.
Hopefully more tips, right? So when I worked at Cheesecake Factory, how many of you have been to Cheesecake Factory before? Anybody? Okay. What's their menu like at Cheesecake Factory?
Like pasta. So
It is like a 22-page spiral bound notebook, right? You have to flip through every single thing. And so as a server, I was like, oh no, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for people to take a chance and look and see what they want. So as a server, I'd always ask, what are you in the mood for? Our pastas are on page 11, sandwiches are on page 12, our entrees are on page 14. Okay. So I would basically direct them to those pages in the menu so they didn't have to like flip through and try to find that section. So the faster we can turn our tables, turn them over, the more money I have because the more guests I'm going to have, right? Same thing here with inventory turnover. Inventory turnover is basically how many times did we get rid of our inventory and we have to replace it, okay? Yeah.
Isn't that a strategy to make the menu look confusing to get more money?
What do you mean?
Like it's like a book basically, and you see something that you see the first thing and you just get that because you're confused.
Okay, possibly. You might open that up and just say, this is too much work. I'm gonna go for that. Yeah. I didn't think about that as far as because I know if you have like a regular menu, you can compare prices really easily. Like, okay, what am I in the mood for? Oh, this is $40. I'm not sure if I'm ready to spend $40 on that. So I might go for something different. Whereas if you're on a page, you're just looking at that particular page. That's interesting. I never thought about that.
I work on the opposite though, because they might just look at the page like, oh, okay, I'm gonna just get the cheapest thing on there.
Possibly, yeah, absolutely. So, but Cheesecake Factory, if you haven't been there, the food is excellent. The portions are huge, so there's always a lot of extra food. But our inventory turnover, that number, that number is based on what our inventory is. So if I have a high turnover rate, like 3.5 times, I'm probably dealing with more things like fresh food, fresh produce, maybe fresh meat, seafood, fresh baked items that have a very short shelf life. I have to turn them over more times in order to get through the service, right? Let's do another example. Remember, 500 was our ending inventory. So 500 becomes our beginning inventory. So what's 500 plus 4,500?
5,000.
5,000. Thank you so much. Thank you online. 5,000. We subtract that ending inventory, and our cost of goods sold is
2,000.
2,500. Good. Okay. Then we do our average. So average inventory of 500 plus 2,500 divided by 2 equals
1,500.
500 plus 2,500 is 3,000 divided by 2. Our average inventory is 1,500. Okay, I'm showing you step by step by step. We combine this on the top and then we divide by 2 to get 1,500. And now for our turnover, we take our turnover rate of 2,500. It's about 5. We divide by our average inventory of 1,500. And we get
1.67.
1.67. Good. So having a lower inventory turnover, maybe we have things that are more shelf stable. So maybe we have a lot of frozen things. So rather than having fresh potatoes and fresh onions to make onion rings and French fries, maybe we have them frozen so they can stay longer. There's less time that we have to replace those in between the ordering. Okay. Maybe we have things we cook a lot from the cans, right? So we use a lot of canned goods in our cooking. And so that means our items are more shelf stable, which means we have to turn our items over less. So there's not really a good or bad or industry standard of turnover. It all just kind of depends on what your ingredients are and how often you have to order. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? So there is an average inventory turnover homework that's going to be due next, is actually due after spring break. Okay. So you'll actually have 2 weeks to work on this particular assignment. You're welcome to get it done and be over with if you want to. There's gonna be no bonus points on this one though. But you're welcome to get that done if you want to. As a reminder of our schedule. So Thursday we'll meet in class on Thursday and we will go over chapter 7. Okay. Then we're gonna have spring break. So next week there is no classes. The 17th and the 19th will have covers chapters 8 and 9. And then the following week, the 24th and 26th, we'll cover chapter 10. Okay. So by that time, by the 26th of March, we should basically be done with the textbook, which means we're going to go into that project workday model for the rest of the semester until the review. Okay. Don't forget the 31st, we are closed on the 31st for Cesar Chavez Day. So the campus is closed. There are no classes on Tuesday, March 31st. Okay. I will have on the 30th at 2 o'clock. You can use the same class link that we use for Zoom for this class. You can use that same link on the 30th if you want to log in on the 30th. I will host class that day just for the project study time if you need to. I'm not taking attendance, but just if you need help with the project, I'll be available on the 30th at 2 o'clock. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? No? I don't know what's going on with my my YouTube. It's not processing the videos, so it may take me a while to get this one uploaded. I will do that as soon as I can. Well, so much. I will see you on Thursday.